Today we will discuss about the histology of stomach. Histology of stomach. As we know that stomach is a muscular bag-like structure which is present between the esophagus and the small intestine. Muscular bag-like structure. Bag-like structure. It is present between the esophagus and the small intestine. It has two ends. Cardiac end and pyloric end. It has two ends, cardiac end and the pyloric end. Two curvature. Greater curvature and lesser curvature. Two surfaces, anterior surfaces and posterior surfaces. So it has a two end, cardiac end, pyloric end, two curvature, greater curvature, lesser curvature, two surface, anterior surface and the posterior surface. It is a jet-shaped structure which is present mostly in the left quadrant of the abdomen. Anatomically, it is divided into four parts. Anatomically, it is divided into four parts. First part is the cardiac part. Second one is the fundus. Third is the body. And the fourth one is the pyloric part. Stomach is divided into three parts. First one is the cardiac part. Second is the fundus and body. That is the second part. Fundus plus body. Third is the pyloric part. As histology of fundus and body are similar, so these two parts considered as a one part. So histologically, stomach divided in three parts. First one is the cardiac part, second one into the fundus and body, and third one is the pyloric part. We will discuss one by one each part of the histology of each part of the stomach. But first of all, we have to know the common histological feature of the stomach. Now come to the general histological feature of the stomach. Feature of the stomach. Similar to the histological feature of the GIT, it has four ports. Mucosa, submucosa, muscularis externa, and serosa. 4 codes. These 4 codes arrange from inner to outer. That is, mucosa is the innermost layer, which is further divided into 3 layers. Inner one is the lining epithelium, then lamina propria, and then muscularis mucosae. Submucosa is present outer to the mucosa. It consists of the connective tissue. It contains blood vessels, some fibroblasts, some collagen fibers, and muscularis externa consists of the smooth muscles which are arranged into the 3 layers: inner oblique, middle circular, and outer longitudinal. Serosa consists of the connective tissue, loose connective tissue, which is covered by the simple squamous mesothelium of the peritoneum. So these are 4 codes similar to the general histology of GIT: mucosa, submucosa, muscularis externa, and serosa, which are present in the wall of the stomach. Now come to the mucosa. Mucosa has 3 layers. First one is the lining epithelium. So mucosa has 3 layers. First one is the lining epithelium. Lining epithelium. This is the lining epithelium, which is consists of simple columnar epithelium. Which is consists of simple columnar epithelium. So your lining epithelium is simple columnar epithelium. This lining epithelium invaginate into the lamina propria. So second layer of the mucosa is the lamina propria. Second layer of the mucosa is the lamina propria. This one is the lining epithelium. Second is the lamina propria. This one is the lamina. Lining epithelium invaginates into the lamina propria and form a structure which is known as the gastric pit. So this is the gastric pit, which is the feature of the mucosa of the stomach. This is the gastric pit. Gastric pit is formed by the invagination of lining epithelium into the lamina propria. In gastric, the depth of the gastric pit are different in a different region of the stomach. That we will know later. Okay. So second layer is the lamina propria, which consists of the loose connective tissue. It contains gland. Contain gland, blood vessels, some nerves, and some lymphatic nodules. Subglandular region of the lamina propria contains lymphatic nodules. Few lymphatic nodules are also present in the lamina propria. The second layer is the lamina propria, which is formed by the loose connective tissue. It contains glands. These glands open into the gastric pit and release their secretion into the lumen of the stomach and protect the interior of the stomach from the corrosive action of the acidic secretion of the gut. Now third layer of the mucosa is muscularis mucosae. Muscularis mucosae. This is the third layer of the muscularis mucosae, which consists of the smooth muscles, and these muscle fibers arranged into the two layers: inner circular and outer longitudinal. So here muscularis mucosae, this one is the muscularis mucosae, which is arranged into two layers: inner circular and outer longitudinal. Some muscle fiber of the muscularis mucosae extend into the lamina propria and present between the glands. So these three structures, lining epithelium, lamina propria and the muscularis mucosae are the three layers of the mucosa. Now come to the submucosa. So these three structures belongs to the mucosa: lining epithelium, lamina propria and muscularis mucosae. In features of the mucosa include gastric pit, and gastric gland. Gastric pit is formed by the invagination of the lining epithelium, and its depth is different in different regions of the stomach. In gastric pit, gastric gland open. Gastric gland present into the lamina propria, and it's known as cardiac gland, fundus gland, or pyloric gland, depending on the region in which that gland is present. Gastric gland has three parts: isthmus, where it's open into the gastric pit; neck region, that is the isthmus; neck and base. Normally in stomach, gastric gland is lined by the simple columnar cell, but in case in fungus, in fundus, gastric gland has the different types of cells, which we will read in later. Now come to the submucosa. Submucosa consists of fibroconnective tissue. Submucosa consists of the fibroconnective tissue. Fibroconnective tissue. Here, dense irregular connective tissue present with collagen fibers, some fibroblast cells, blood vessels, nerve and nerve plexus. So this one is the submucosa, which consists of the dense irregular connective tissue which contain some collagen fibers, some fibroblast cells, blood vessels, some nerve plexus. Nerve plexus in submucosa is known as the Messner nerve plexus. So this is the submucosa. Now come to the muscularis externa. That is the third coat of the stomach, muscularis externa. Muscularis externa consists of the smooth muscles fibers, and that fibers arrange into the three layer from inner to outer: oblique layer, that is the innermost layer, middle one is the circular layer, and outer one is the longitudinal layer. So muscularis externa consists of the smooth muscles which is arranged into three layers. Inner, oblique, middle circular, and outer longitudinal. Again, you can see inner one is the oblique layer, middle one is the circular layer, and outer one is the longitudinal layer. Here muscularis, this one is the muscularis externa. Which consists of the three layer. Inner layer is the oblique layer, middle one is the circular layer, and outer one is the longitudinal layer. Here oblique layer is incomplete layer, and between circular layer and the longitudinal layer a plexus present, which is known as the myenteric nerve plexus. This one is the myenteric nerve plexus. Myenteric nerve plexus, which is also known as the aortic nerve plexus. So these are the three layers of the muscularis externa. And the last part of the stomach is serosa. Last one is the serosa. Last one layer is the serosa. Which consists of the loose connective tissue and covered by the simple squamous mesothelium of the visceral peritoneum. Here I use the term serosa because here the loose connective tissue, which is constituent of the serosa, loose connective tissue covered by the single layer of the simple squamous mesothelium of visceral peritoneum. Serosa contain blood vessels, nerve, so this one is the serosa. So these are the general histological feature of the stomach. These three layers include in the mucosa. This one is the submucosa, this one is the muscularis externa, and this one is the serosa. So this one is the mucosa, submucosa, muscularis externa, and serosa. So these are the general histological feature of the stomach. Now come to some variation of these histological features occur in the different part of the stomach. So now we discuss the different part of the stomach. First one is the pyloric part. First one is the different part of the stomach. First one is the cardiac part. Now come to the first one is the cardiac part. Cardiac part. In cardiac region, lining epithelium is a very shallow. It is present in the superficial part of the mucosa. Present in the superficial part of the mucosa, lining epithelium is very shallow, and lining epithelium is simple columnar epithelium. Simple columnar epithelium. Which invaginate into the superficial part of the lamina propria and form gastric pit. This one is the gastric pit. Similar to the general histological feature of the stomach. Here the gastric pit is very shallow, which invaginates into the lamina propria, form gastric pit. Lamina propria contain gland, very few gland, which is known as the cardiac gland. Here cardiac gland is lined by the simple columnar epithelium. It consists of the single type of cell, that is the simple mucus cell, which secrete mucus, which release into the gastric pit and release into the lumen of the stomach and protect the interior of the stomach from the corrosive action of the acidic secretion of the stomach. Okay. So this gland in the cardiac is known as the cardiac gland. Rest muscularis mucosae, which consists of the two layer. Similarly, two layer, inner circular and outer longitudinal. This layer sends some thin strand of the muscle fiber into the lamina propria between the glands. Some mucosa similarly consists of the consists of the connective tissue, dense, irregular connective tissue with the collagen fiber, fibroblast, some nerve plexus, blood vessels. Muscularis mucosae. Now come to the muscularis mucosae of the cardiac region. It consists of the three layer. Similarly, inner oblique, middle circular, and outer longitudinal. And outermost layer is the serosa, which consists of the loose connective tissue covered by the simple squamous mesothelium of the peritoneum. So these are the histological features of the cardiac region of the stomach, which is similar to the general histology of the stomach, except in this area, gastric pit is a very shallow present into the superficial part of the mucosa. Gastric gland is known as the cardiac gland, which is lined by the single type of cell, that is the mucus cells, which secretes mucus, which release into the lumen of the stomach and protect the interior of the stomach. Now come to the fundus and body. Histological feature of the fundus and body. The gastric gland is shallow but extend up to the 1/4 of the mucosa. Gastric pit extend up to the 1/4 of the mucosa. Here the lining epithelium is the simple columnar epithelium. Similarly, simple columnar epithelium. Which invaginate into lamina propria to form the gastric pit, which extend up to the 1/4 of the mucosa. In gastric pit, gastric gland open, which is present into the lamina propria. In subglandular area, in subglandular region, some lymphatic nodules present into the lamina propria. So this one is the gastric gland, which is known as the fundic gland. This is the gastric gland present into the fundus and body is known as the fundic gland. The fundic gland has the different types of cells. Mostly there are 4 types of cells. First one is the gastric gland has the 4 type of cell. First one is the mucous neck cell. Into the lamina propria of the fundus and body is known as the fundic gland, which has the different types of cells, in which 4 types of cells are most important cells. First one is the mucous neck cell. First one is the mucous neck cell. Mucous neck cell is the simple low columnar cells which is present into the neck region of the gland. It is present to the neck region of the gland and it secretes mucus. It secretes mucus which releases into the lumen of the stomach and protect the interior of the stomach from the corrosive action of the gastric secretion, acidic secretion. Okay, so first one is the mucous neck cell. Second one is the parietal cells. Second one is the parietal cells. So second one is the parietal cells. Parietal cells is pyramidal cells which is present into the upper half of the gland. It secretes HCl and intrinsic factor. HCl is the main constituent of the gastric secretion and intrinsic factor is essential for the absorption of the vitamin B12. Parietal cells are the acidophilic cytoplasm. The third cell is the chip cells. Third type of cell is the chip cells. Chip cells is the cuboidal cells. Its cytoplasm is basophilic. It secretes pepsinogen. Which is converted into the pepsin in acidic environment of the stomach. It also secretes amylase, lipase and lipase. Fourth cells of the fundic gland is enteroendocrine cells. So fourth cells is the enteroendocrine cells. It is a unicellular cell. It is present at the basal part of the gland and it secretes gastrointestinal hormone. It secretes gastrointestinal hormone which is essential for the digestion and the peristalsis. So these are the mucosa gland, fundic gland. This is about the fundic gland of the which is present into the lamina propria. Third layer of the mucosa is the muscularis mucosae, which has the same muscle fiber arranged in two layers, inner circular, outer longitudinal. This sends some thin muscle strand which is present between the fundic gland. Okay, the submucosa of the fundus. Submucosa of the fundus similarly consists of the connective tissue. Dense irregular connective tissue contains some fibroblasts, some collagen fibers, blood vessels, nerve and nerve plexus. Nerve and nerve plexus. Nerve plexus is known as the masseter nerve plexus. This one is the submucosa. Third one is the muscularis externa, in which the smooth muscle fiber arranged into the three layer, inner oblique, middle circular and outer longitudinal, similar to the general histological feature of the stomach. And serosa consists of the loose connective tissue covered by the simple squamous mesothelium of the peritoneum. So these are the histological feature of the fundus and body of the stomach. Now come to the pyloric part of the stomach. In pyloric part, gastric pit is very deep, extend up to the half of the mucosa. In pyloric region, gastric pit is very deep, extend up to the half or more than half of the mucosa. It is lined by the simple columnar cells It is lined by the simple columnar cells which invaginate into the lamina propria to form the gastric pit. Lining epithelium consists of the simple columnar cell which invaginate into the lamina propria of the stomach and form the gastric pit. Gastric pit is a very deep, present up to the half or more than half extent of the mucosa. Here the gland, in lamina propria gland presents which is lined by the single type of cell similar to the cardiac region. That cell is known as the mucous neck cell. This one is the gastric gland which is known as the pyloric gland. Which consists of the single type of cells that is the simple mucous cells. Which secrete mucus released into the lumen of the stomach and protect the interior of the stomach. So the gland present into the pyloric gland. Gastric pit is a very deep, present up to half extent of the mucosa, and muscularis mucosa is similar to the general histology of stomach. Some mucosa is also similar to the general histology of the stomach. That is, it consists of the loose connective, it consists of the dense irregular connective tissue with the fibroblast, blood vessels, masseter nerve plexus. Okay. And now come to the muscularis mucosae. This one is the mucosa. This one is submucosa. Now come to the muscularis mucosae. In upper part of the pyloric region, in the most of the part of the pyloric region, muscularis mucosae consists of the smooth muscle which is arranged into the three layers: inner oblique, middle circular, and outer longitudinal. Between oblique layer is incomplete. Between the circular and longitudinal layer, there is a nerve plexus which is the myelitic nerve plexus. These types of arrangement of a smooth muscle present into the upper part of the pyloric region. But at the region of the pylorus, that is the gastroduodenal junction, the circular layer, this is the circular layer, become thickened. Circular layer become thickened. Circular layer become thickened to form pyloric sphincter. In pyloric part, muscularis externa. As the same arrangement of a smooth muscle as the simple general histology of the stomach. Okay, but at the region of the pylorus, that is the gastroduodenal junction, circular muscle fiber circular muscle layer become thickened to form pyloric sphincter. Pyloric sphincter. And the longitudinal layer divide into the deep and superficial part, and deep part of the longitudinal layer turn inward towards the circular layer and join the circular layer and help in the formation of the pyloric sphincter. So pyloric sphincter is formed by the both circular layer and the longitudinal layer, but major constituent of the pyloric sphincter is the circular muscles layer, and minor contribution by the longitudinal layer. So this is all about the histology of pyloric region of the stomach. Serosa is the same. It consists of a loose connective tissue and the lined by the simple squamous cells. So this is the all about the pyloric region and the histology of the stomach.